Okay, we are starting, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor for us to be together with you and to inform you on the results of the Cyber Polygon exercise. I'd like to make some small introductory remarks. As you know, as part of the first Global Cyber Week in Moscow, one of the major and most important events that was organized this week was a training session which was called Cyber Polygon. It was the first time that we organized such a training. As part of the training, we looked at the scenario of a global infection of a malware, global attack using malware on various entities and structures. As part of the scenario, it was the network of airlines and airports, and as a result, the devices of the passengers of these air companies were infected too. For the first time, we used the single rules and standards to work out the response for such an attacks, and the teams were located in different countries. The training got a lot of media attention. We did not expect that, actually. We had a live broadcast. It was a live broadcast that was on air for more than 3 hours. There were around 230 companies that watched the live broadcast, and our audience was, according to our estimates, was 10-12 million people globally. The results of this training were very important for us because that was a first experience for us on working out the collective response, especially talking about the business structures, business entities. So when they exchanged the information, we helped each other to prevent large losses for the businesses and for large corporations, and we acted together to protect our assets. We achieved the goals and tasks of the training, and I would like to give the floor to the moderator of our today's briefing, Bruno Halapo. He's representing a World Economic Forum. He is the head of Cyber Resilience and Center for Cybersecurity of World Economic Forum, and he was present personally in our Center for Cyber Security that hosted the training, and he was personally engaged in all the training sessions. Bruno, please, you have the floor.
Before starting, maybe I can ask to start the video. We have a short video summarizing the exercise, and if we can start the video now, please.
Cyber Polygon training can help us learn to collaborate better together. This is the main issue, and I think the main slogan for our Cyber Polygon training can be, better to say, have to be, and sounds the trust. And I wish you and us good luck.
So we're here to present you the outcome of an exercise that happened Wednesday this week. Cyber Polygon has been organized by Sberbank and Bison, and today we have 6 speakers who will give some experience about this exercise, some insights they might want to share with you, and also some lessons learned. This exercise has been built, and it's quite unique, into a multi-sector cooperation model, meaning that you have the private and the public sector together working on solving issues on 3 different scenarios. This exercise was not only exercise purely, it was also used as a training so that all the participants could learn, and also all the viewers of this exercise could also learn from that. So the main goal is to improve cooperations, but also to enable better coordination. We cannot deal with cyber incident alone, so we need to cooperate, and the most efficient way is to be coordinating this with the right actor at the right moment in a concerted effort. So today we have 6 speakers who participated or organized this event. I will ask them 1 question each, and after that we can open the floor to you to ask some questions. So today we have Dimitri Samartev from Bison, the CEO of Bison. We have Craig Jones, Cybercrime Director at Interpol. We have Zambolat Nadirov, Chairman of the Board of Transtelecom, Kazakhstan. We have Alan Salim Kabalong, which is Assistant Secretary, Cybersecurity and Enabling Technology from the Republic of the Philippines. We have Jacqueline Kerno, Partner in Cybersecurity from Ernst & Young. We have finally Alexander Baryshnikov, which is Chief Information Technology from the New Development Bank. So I will start this set of questions to you, Dimitri. And my first questions would be, what are the main benefits for the participants of this exercise and the global community as a whole?
Thank you, Bruno. So I'm in Moscow, so I will talk Russian.
Well, actually, we have worked out 3 large-scale scenarios. The first scenario, we tried to emulate the infection, the massive DDoS attack on all the participants, and the participants had to protect themselves from this attack and to defend. The second scenario was the scenario where we emulated the web injections, meaning the attack on web resources. We all understand now that basically all companies on our planet have their websites, corporate websites, and for some of them, you know, digital business is the core business. So currently, the attacks that help the attackers and criminals to steal data and information are very well widespread, and we need to understand how to protect ourselves from them. In the third scenario, we try to emulate the most popular way to deliver malware in the structure of any organization or on a person's device. And this was phishing. Every scenario was divided in 2 parts. During the first part, the first round, the participants had to defend themselves in a standalone mode. So they were siloed when they protected their infrastructure. They did not cooperate. Then, on the second round, we opened our data exchange platform, which is called Bison Threat Vision, which is now used in the Association of Banks of Russia as a platform for exchanging data. And we asked the participants to connect to this platform and to protect themselves by sharing data using this platform. So each scenario was divided in these parts. The results were really shocking. The efficiency of cyber security teams improved by more than 7-fold after we connected the platform. What does that testify to? Well, that really testifies to the following. Without collaboration, unfortunately, each corporation had to invent everything anew, had to find everything from scratch and to defend themselves alone. When we start to collaborate without breaching any international laws, of course, the efficiency of our interaction helps us to better protect ourselves from cyber threats. So we thought like protecting ourselves and by protecting everyone. And all the corporations have to understand that. We plan to make this an annual event, and we hope that each year more and more companies will join the effort, and more state institutions will join us, because we need to make the world safer.
From Interpol, how much exercises such as Cyber Polygon helps for the development of strong public and private partnership, and more particularly with law enforcement, and how does it help also to fight cybercrime?
Thank you, Bruno. Yes, we've been delighted to be part of this exercise with Bizone this week in Moscow. We've learnt a great deal from it. As an observer, first of all, looking about how the companies worked individually in the first instance and what the results were, and then collaboratively and the differences in the results. And we can show this in law enforcement as well. We work quite often as nations to fight cybercrime, and we're in individual silos in that basis. But again, when we work collaboratively, our results are a lot better. And as the new Director of Cybercrime for Interpol, part of my mandate is to reduce the global impact of cybercrime and protect communities for a safer world. And this demonstrates perfectly to us about how we can achieve that. I think also, if we go back to such global incidents as WannaCry, is the global response to that at the time was we had a plan, and then we put that plan into place. And like any plan, when you test it in times of crisis, you learn a lot from that. But what you need to do is learn from that, and I think we're going to learn a lot from this exercise as well. I think also for the cybersecurity teams as well, you are going to be the first responders to this incident, whereas normally in policing, when we turn up at an accident, police are there first of all. They deal with the casualties, they deal with the witnesses, and they deal with that scene. But in the virtual world, you are going to be the first people at that scene. So you need to understand what your role is there, but also later if policing comes and asks for the evidence is, how have you gathered that evidence? What are your records like? Because, you know, you may be asked to appear in court or a judicial process at the end of this. So we need to understand our common language as well. So exercises like this help us test that and help us explore those issues. Again, within policing, we look at the training element of this. We discussed, you know, training. Training's great, but we have to learn. We have to use that training. Exercising and testing for all of us jointly helps us develop and also look at new ways of training. I think for policing, we need to evolve and we need to adapt. We need to understand now the environment that we're working in when we're doing those investigations are different now. We are relying very much on our partners, and by our partners, I mean our private partners in this as well. As I explained to you, you may be first to that scene, so we may be coming to speak with you afterwards and try and find that evidence because we want to identify the attackers. We're able to take the law enforcement side to that, and we're able to go after those attackers, disrupt them, and bring them to justice. And also as an interesting development to this as well, Interpol has the incident response teams that you see on the physical sense. They go out when there's a major incident to support countries. What I'm looking to do as part of the programme is how can we have that cyber incident response team globally? How do we coordinate that? And we've got a number of projects ongoing about that at the moment, about sharing on platforms as well, in similar methods to this as well. And we can align some of that work. So I think that's enough from me. Thank you very much for allowing me to attend this event. It's been very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. I will now ask Zambolat. Do you see increasing effort in cooperation and exercising, especially in the critical infrastructure operators field? And also what is done at your government level for that?
I am the CEO of Telecom company. We are a large systemic mobile carrier in Kazakhstan. We had to develop a company, to develop our business, but yet we had to address these threats because large power plants and heat plants are our customers, and so they have this equipment that ensure the work of the critical infrastructure. So when we participated in this training with Bison company, it was the first time that we participated in such event, in such exercise, and we really loved it. Our employees were participating in the organization and in the of cyber attacks and in defense against these attacks. We would like to thank Sberbank and our partner Bison. I think that next year we are going to have even more employees that will be involved in this cyber polygon. In Kazakhstan, we actually built our own security operations center. We now have 2 centers, 3 response units in terms of cybersecurity, and together with our partners, with Russia, we want to deepen our partnership in this area.
I think this year we're going to participate as well. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you, Zambalat. Now I will move to Alan, more on the government level. The question would be how important it is for governments to participate to such exercises as to anticipate or adapt your cybersecurity strategy and in your national environment. Alan?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. I would like to congratulate Sberbank and Bison for having this impressive Cyber Polygon training event. For the DICT in the Philippines, we are the national CERT of the Philippines, basically handle the cybersecurity office of the Philippines. We have 4 learnings as the outcome of this Cyber Polygon training. The first learning is the response to cyber attacks with global collaboration and partnership. As technology develops, more and more people are connected, increasing the reach and influence of each user. Through the internet, information is easily shared and received. Unfortunately, some people use this power for wrongdoings. The hacking community is slowly growing. They share their techniques and findings with one another. For example, if one of them finds a vulnerability in the system, they would share it to their community. This effectively gives the strength of one hacker to everyone in their community. As their numbers rise, the battle between the hackers and cybersecurity is starting to lean more on the hacker side. That is why the main goal of the Cyber Polygon training was to show that the different cybersecurity agencies can also collaborate against these attackers. The number 2 learnings that we have in this training is the collaboration alone is not enough. It has to be structured and organized. In the fight against cyber criminals, simple collaboration, which is composed only of IT team, is not enough. Structure and organization are also important points to be considered. Everyone must understand the different roles and responsibilities, as well as the protocols at hand. While the IT team is working on the attack, the concerned departments can help by taking charge of the communication at the national level. The others can also help by controlling the flow of information to efficiently and accurately disseminate critical information. Furthermore, it is also important to start small. Each level of the command structure, from the lowest to the highest, must be systematic and methodical. Without this, the entire system could be at risk of falling apart. Collaboration in this case might prove to be more destructive rather than constructive. The number 3 learning is a collective and interconnected pool of information. As the famous quote says, "United we stand, divided we fall." The best This best encapsulates the spirit of the Cyber Polygon training. Although the event showed that a cohesive effort through information sharing is better than working alone, it does not necessarily mean full transparency. Not everything has to be shared. Doing so might even do more harm than good. In fact, it is a potential security risk. However, trust plays a big role in creating productive relationship and maintaining effective coordination. What is better is that only helpful information such as those concerning our experiences with attacks is shared with others. This might prove useful in the event that they are also faced with the same or with a similar attack. Perhaps the main takeaway from this exercise is that people should set their differences aside and help each other for the ultimate goal to ensure cybersecurity for all. And the last but the most important learnings that we have is that there's no quick fix. There's still a long way to go before collaboration between nations can be achieved. Cybersecurity bodies are starting to communicate and interact with each other through activities such as this. Some problems that arose from the exercise is that no information was shared between the different blue teams. What happened was that one team finished the exercise stop. It would have been better if the other teams were informed of what the first team did to quickly block and counter the attack. This way, if the attack happens again, the other teams are already informed as what to do. Furthermore, even though the other teams did not finish as fast as completely stop the attacks, they might have discovered something that may be useful to everyone else. So adding to this, each person has their own fields of knowledge and experiences. At the start of the simulation, everyone was giving their thoughts and opinions as to how to handle the attack. As the simulation went on, certain people started to stand out due to their knowledge about the type of attack. By sharing what they know, the team was able to stop the attack, and everyone is informed as to how to stop the attack. So these are the 4 learnings that the government of the Philippines experienced and shared to you so that we can all stop this ever-changing landscape in cybersecurity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. I will turn now to Jacqueline. As a service company aiming at building a better working world, what is for you the main issues in securing the supply chain of your customers and the lesson learned from this exercise you could see?
Thank you. So first of all, I love the answers across the board, and I think what's really interesting is to see the way that the language that we use has changed across cybersecurity. We used to talk in very militarised language, and now we talk about collaboration and sharing and people, and really that's how we're going to solve the problem. The interconnectedness of all of our systems, our global financial system, etc. It is vulnerable to lack of confidence across the board and to attacks on, one company, I guess, affects the whole system and can, undermine confidence in the whole system. So I guess what we see is that one of the big issues is understanding assets as a whole picture across the entire supply chain and understanding how the resources and controls that you use against those assets and that asset mapping is also vulnerable to attack. So say, for example, in the previous, I guess, competition model, company X, is being attacked and pulls in a lot of security resources, and as we know, we have a serious global shortage of cybersecurity resources. They've pulled in all the resources to manage that attack, which leaves a resilience problem for you, especially if you're reliant on a contractor workforce, or if there's other issues which undermine it. And I think Craig mentioned the WannaCry attack. That has the potential to affect a host of systems that it wasn't necessarily targeted at in the first place, and those systems can have a really important impact on your ability to operate as an individual business. So I think really the necessity of understanding the process as an interconnectedness exercise, of understanding, in detail what your key assets are and how those assets are related to, controlled by or affected by other events in other companies, which might not be something that you directly manage. And then, as we've seen today in the Cyber Polygon exercise, and I think that's what's fantastic, it's really important to understand what you're trying to protect and to consistently exercise the capability, because you always learn when you exercise a capability, and I think that's what we've seen in the last few days in this exercise. So huge kudos to the team here for running that, because I think the more we exercise, the more we understand how to be more effective when a real threat comes up.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Now we'll move to our last speaker for today, which is Alexander. Being at the New Development Bank with a main focus on fostering development and facilitating job creation, what are your lessons learned from today's Cyber Polygon exercise? And based on those lessons, what you would see to develop in the near future? Thank you.
Спасибо. Я продолжаю пример Дмитрия, буду говорить по-русски.
Thank you very much. I'll follow the example of Dmitry and speak Russian with respect to the audience. Well, first off, thank you very much for the ability to participate in this exercise. I was genuinely impressed. I haven't really seen an event as global as this at Cybersecurity Fora. I think Sberbank and Bizone established a new benchmark for running congresses like this. You can appreciate the volume that the organizers were able to, the volume of effort that the organizers were able to put into these organization into the organization of these exercises. Now, what did we actually learn? A lot has been said about how important cybersecurity cooperation is. A lot of proposals have been brought up, but there was one question that was aired at the cyber exercises when Alexander, the moderator of the entire exercise, asked if there are such advantages in cooperation. Why does cooperation take so long to establish? And the answer was pretty simple. There was just a lack of trust between the organization. When they exchange information about having been attacked or having become the target of fraud, that really raises a question to all of us. We are, as a new development bank, we are not a typical retail bank. We're not a typical commercial outfit. We have been established by 5 nations. We have this supranational status. And this really gives us a consensus basis for operation. There should be a consensus between the countries. And that consensus is really underpinned by trust and the understanding of common goal, the common goal of sustainable development and sustainable infrastructure in the BRICS nations and in other developing economies. So in this sense, we thought, what could our contribution be to cybersecurity collaboration? We think that our status as a platform that unites several countries allows us to provide certain services to borrowers and promote the culture of cooperation in cybersecurity. We could give certain standards, certain benchmarks of services to our borrowers, obviously in cooperation with our tech partners. And this would lead us step by step to instilling this cybersecurity culture in BRICS nations and in other nations that could benefit from our services. I think this could be our contribution, and in practice we will obviously study the options. Again, thank you Sberbank and all the partners. That was a really impressive show and a really impressive exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander. Now we will have some room for some questions you may have. So I will ask you, when you will ask a question, please quickly mention who you are, ask your question, and if you want to direct it to one of our speakers, please name also this person. Is there any first question in the audience? Yes?
The speaker is not using the microphone. Vladimir Obruchev, SB Development Company. My question is to Dmitry. When you held the Cyber Polygon exercises, have you made any discoveries that you had not envisaged when you did simulations on smaller scale, have there been any innovations in approaches or in outcomes? Have you encountered anything genuinely new? Thank you, Vladimir. You know, we really repulsed 12 DDoS attacks that the cyber criminal community launched against Cyber Polygon platform to destabilize it. That means that not just we are trying to analyze the internet, the shadow community is also very well aware of what the legal digital world is all about. The criminals are using the same analytical tools, and they are excellent collaborators. And unless we do the same, the digital world will probably never become secure. It is our common mission to try and do everything. I mean, the dry statistics show that collaboration leads to a lot of a decrease in cyber threats. You know, they decrease by multiples. Vladimir Yurteev, I'm Vice President of the National Tech Chamber. Thank you very much. Very interesting information that was. Question: can the Interpol trace the physical persons, the individuals behind those attacks? I mean, all our work is about being good cops. Can you actually track the criminals? Can you actually track the criminals?
In short, yes. We can do that through, again, going back to the collaboration side. Interpol are there to connect policing for a safer world. So part of our role is to join policing together. So if one national police entity has some information about a cyber attack or perpetrators, they can go direct to another country, or we can help coordinate that through Interpol. Also, we're working with private partners as well. So we have 13 private partners currently who we can go to. We can do what we officially call requests for information. So we can pose an exam question for them, if you like, and then they can provide information back to us. We can then enrich that information in our Cyber Fusion Centre in Singapore, which is part of our directorate, and then we can then look at identifying and attributing it back to the criminal or organised crime groups as well. But we also take that a stage further. We've got 2 other global programmes as well, the counter-terrorism one and organised emerging crime one, and that's the financial side of it. And when we're going after criminals or organised crime groups, money hurts. If we can stop the money and disrupt them that way, that is one of the main things that hurts them as well. So that's why we work closely with our other programmes as well. So we might do that internally as well with Interpol, but again, we might look at different ways that we can, and I don't want to use the word attack, but we can disrupt the cyber criminals to make their lives more difficult as well.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Дмитрий.
Good afternoon. My name is Dmitry Konstanz-Lega Group. I'm from Ukraine. I'm not sure whether to pose this question to you, to Dmitry Samartsov. Perhaps I'll ask this Dmitry Samartsov. Are there some objective indicators of decrease in hacker activity after the Telegram was blocked? And if Ukraine does not go the same way Russia does, so does not block Telegram, what would be the ramification of our country, for our country? Sorry, I don't quite understand how Telegram blocking is related to that. Attacks on what exactly? Hacker attacks on what exactly? Well, as far as I understand, the official reason to block Telegram in Russia was the hacker and terrorist activity. Well, as far as I know, it is not that. Well, I stand to be corrected. Well, I don't know. I mean, perhaps you have to ask this question to our regulators, to Roskomnadzor, but, you know, I do not think this is the reason, really. But, I mean, how is it related to Cyber Polygon? Can you ask a question related to Cyber Polygon? I mean, why are you talking about Telegram now? So it's the question for the Russian regulator. Well, I mean, It's obvious that you want me to answer the question that is not related to Cyber Polygon. I'm not in the authority to answer that. I think that there are officials of the regulator who you can ask this question. Okay, thank you. You are very welcome. Konstantin Yevdokimov, good afternoon. I'm from a company which is called 13. I'll ask a question about Cyber Polygon. I'll ask this question to you. Now, collaboration obviously improves efficiency. You know, I remember when I was a student, I used to look at my neighbor when I did tests. I'd look at what my neighbors did, and it really improved my productivity. I remember that. But do you think this is the only efficient tool? You know, for me, our blue teams cannot discover anything new without collaboration, because access to collaboration, access to data, access to the indicators of compromise helps, based on that information, to do a lot of analytics. So the more data we have, the more data each large corporation has, the quicker will be the development of the cybersecurity tools. I think that this collaboration helps. That comparison you made, you know, when you look at how it's like, you know, it's really it's not when you cheat on your tests using the answers of your another student, but it's like when another student says that this chair is broken, you should not sit on that. So this is collaboration. Hello, I would like to ask a specific question. This is perhaps a new era. The AI is a new thing. What do you think? How AI will look like in like 3 or 5 years in this area? Well, TI. Well, if you talk about threat intelligence, the story here is quite exciting. I mean, you can divide this area in 2 global parts. First stage is when we try to integrate, and our colleagues from other companies and entities try to integrate some information from some source in our TI systems. Unfortunately, 95% of the time or even more, this information is garbage. It really won't help you to protect yourself, and you have to kind of find the small parts of useful data in this great amount of data that are delivered to you by the vendors. The second kind of line for developing these solutions, and there are several companies that develop such solutions, and Craig talked about that. When we try to integrate not the vendors of the protection measures, but when we try to integrate the companies that are protecting themselves, because when companies defend and defend from an attack, and they upload the indicators in one platform, a common platform, we might understand that these indicators are important. We trust them more, and using much less data, we can really find some anomalies quicker and enrich and improve our protection systems.
Добрый день.
Good afternoon, Evgeny Nikitin from Rostelecom Solar Company. It was a very exciting exercise, I think, and it was. I think that there were some participants, good participants and bad participants, who focused on that training. You know, talking about collaboration in terms of responding to cyber threats, you have more and more information, and it appears this information is generated thanks to some collaboration. But this information has to be kind of legally binding, because if you have on this platform some information that was put on this platform intentionally, but this is a false information, and you will use that information to make a managerial decision, you might make a very harsh mistake. So I mean, I'm not sure that you would have to ensure the legally binding feature to the information that you shared during the exercise. Well, we didn't put anyone in jail. Yeah, but it's just that I'm saying that it is very important to make sure that this information is truthful, has integrity, and so on and so forth. Because hackers can look at that too, and they can do it. They can do the following way: they can change this information that is used for collaboration, so that the managerial decision would be wrong. So I think that when you create such platforms, you need to kind of make sure that this is a kind of a legally binding information, that people will be held accountable if the information was intentionally wrong. So perhaps that is a solution. Well, I think the legally binding feature, the information can be legally binding only when the investigation is ongoing. I stand to be corrected, but perhaps Craig will comment on that.
So I think we use words like intelligence, data, information, and when we gather that all together, we have to analyse it, and then we can exploit it. And on the legal side of that is we have to make sure when we are carrying out from a law enforcement point of view, any information we're acting on, we maybe corroborate it from another source. We have other feeds that we can take, other information we take, and we bring that all together. So when we launch an investigation or some sort of operation, that's what we're doing in the first instance. And as part of that work, we may be looking at a judicial outcome. If we're looking at a judicial outcome, I'm talking there about a court process in any country. And obviously there, in that process, the evidence, the intelligence or the data has to stand up to scrutiny from a court. So from that point of view, we wouldn't always take things at face value. We would do a lot of work around that, and there's a lot of other people we work with, but when we provide that through the judiciary system, that's, for me, our checks and balances in that area. Thank you.
Ну и добавить хотел бы, что мы, конечно...
Yes, and I would like to add that we obviously understand that criminals analyze everything. But, well, look, when we're not talking about law enforcement, when we're not talking about the investigation, because, I mean, law enforcement agencies have to do investigation, not the companies. We can give some data to this law enforcement agency or not give them. We cannot investigate anything. We do not have this authority. When we talk about our work, the work of the corporate sector, it's very simple. The more we collaborate, the more often the criminals have to update their malware and the methods of attacks and to think up of some new methods of attacks. What does that lead to? To the growth of the costs for each of the attack. And the criminals are motivated by money. They want to earn money or to steal money. And if we help to drive up the costs of the attacks, to bring down the economy of this activity, some criminal gangs will go to some other businesses, let's call it that way. You know, I totally agree with all of you. It's great, but I think I put the question in. I would like to put another question, perhaps. There was the word trust that was voiced by many colleagues. You know, trust is a very, is a very large universal term. For some, trust means confidentiality everywhere, very strict confidentiality. For some other participants, we're more talking about trusting in some other person's capabilities, and there is another notion of trust. I meant another thing. When there are more and more partners collaborating, and yes, it was said that all the participants have to trust each other. So it's like a new, a trusted third party. Let's call it an operator, and this operator should be in line with with some of the qualities, technical requirements, and organizational requirements and legal requirements. I mean, this trusted third party should meet some of these requirements. And could you ask the question? That is the question. Do you plan to develop this tool on your platform to make sure that the information that is shared by the participants would be legally important? So it would not be used in court, but it would be legally important, it would be trusted, so that the participants can use it for their managerial decisions. Perhaps I do not really understand what you mean. But I'm afraid I cannot answer this question. This legal value you're talking about, do not quite understand what do you mean by legal value. Good afternoon, Alexey Lutsenko from BioCAD company. This is perhaps will be a challenging question to all panelists. It's quite good with everything is quite good with large corporations in terms of cybersecurity. As for the SMEs, small and medium companies, there is a problem. Are the participants ready to share some of their developments and some of their instructions, manuals, some of their solutions with the entire world to create this kind of a single and common workbook and guidelines, including for SMEs, that they would use to build their own security systems?
Yes, that's a very important question you bring here. Obviously, big corporations have to be prepared for responding to incidents and know how to answer to those incidents, but the biggest part of our economy is based on the SMEs and SMBs. Unfortunately, this is not at the top of the agenda most of the time, and we have to be in a position where people who are more mature or are able to share knowledge on best practices can do so. This is one of the tasks of the Center for Cybersecurity at the World Economic Forum, where I'm working in. And what we work on at the big corporate level, we intend also to share it at small and medium companies. And we tend to bring those companies together and to bring solutions to them in a way that it doesn't draw too much resources from them. That's how we want to achieve this.
And if I can just take that a further point forward, is when I said about the mandate is protecting communities for a safer world. So the policing purpose is about the prevention and detecting with crime. It's also about protecting individuals, companies. You know, we have a role to play in this, all of us, around to protect ourselves. We understand how to protect ourselves and our homes by putting a lock on the door, by closing the windows at night. In that physical sense, we're very good at doing that. I think in the virtual world, we're learning how to do that. But again, we come back to some complicated language. Just for an example, I reviewed some documentation. We're going to launch a business email compromise campaign through Interpol in October, November this year. And I've been reviewing some of the literature that we're looking to use that. And I sort of put on there, does it pass my mum test? So would my mum understand the documents? Because we do need to make it very clear. And it's not to the point where it's really, really basic. But again, we need to use that common language. Now, law enforcement can play that, governments can play that, private partners can play that as well. And we need to look at all the different levels that we're working on and provide the right information for the right organisations. So whilst we may have global companies there, coming back to the point about do we know our assets and how do we protect them, small, medium enterprises, but again, you know, your own commuters, your own phones, you know, are we protecting there? Are we able to offer the right advice?
Thank you, Craig. We have room for 2 more questions, and after we will conclude. Thank you. One or 2 more questions in the audience.
Nikolai Denisov from Moscow Interior Ministry University. I have 2 questions to Greg. As a representative of a law enforcement agency, could you say, as part of this training, did you have some problems in terms of the unification of the legal environment of the legislation, in terms of the protection of personal data or financial or commercial secrets, in terms of the coordination of the entities of various countries? And the question question to Dmitry. Do you think that the protection should be improved in terms of the response measures, or you have some developments in the predictive things? What are your predictions in terms of building the new protection systems, or do you just respond to the new threats, or do you predict some new threats to appear? Thank you.
Thank you. So looking at the privacy and the security of data, and I can talk about my experiences when I was running cyber investigations. Again, coming back to the model we're working in now, it is quite difficult because companies sometimes don't want to report they've been victim of a cyber attack for various commercial and other reasons. So some of the investigations I dealt with, I didn't actually, or my team didn't speak to the company. We did it through third-party solicitors. Now that's quite difficult for us to comprehend how that works, but obviously they're protecting themselves, but obviously we also want to identify, coming back to the point about attribution to the attackers. So we have to manage that very, very carefully. We have to manage that very sensitively, but also it then comes back to the trust aspect. It's built up over time, and one mistake can destroy that trust as well. So we have to make sure we work very collaboratively on that side in partnership with the companies when they're reporting it to us, and also protect their data and their information when it comes to us. And then that can also play out in court as well, because it might not be you want those techniques or things brought through the court process and made public. So again, there's some difficult decisions that had to be made along the process when you're doing the investigations.
So the interesting thing that the moderator said that there are two questions more, and so you asked these two questions. That was a bit egoistic, but anyway, predicting crime, not really possible. That's really hard to do if you're not a criminal yourself. But we look at the trends. Therefore, we're likely to look at the trends. I'm not going to dive into technical details and share some technical insights, but I'll make the following example. If you see that people start to buy chicken eggs and frying pans and oil, sunflower oil, that means that someone would want to make a sunny side up egg. So any analytics, any experts that try to predict where the cyber crime will go are using these methods. Obviously, AI systems do help because the volume of data and the parameters of data amount to thousands. So we actually have a special booth, and you can come to these guys, and they will share the technical details with you.
And giving you the floor for final words, I want to say a few words. First of all, I would like to thank Sberbank and Bison for organizing Cyber Polygon and for inviting us to this exercise. What we particularly liked at the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity is how this exercise was organized. Second of all is the approach taken, which is really multi-sector, involving public-private law enforcement, which is close to the real world in reality. And then nobody can respond in an isolation way nowadays. So this type of exercise is really useful. It has also been built, to our opinion, in an open and transparent way, where many participants could participate in this and then give their experience and their expertise. And I can believe that we have some rich learnings. Maybe we have to digest all what has been done during that day still, but some concrete actions for sure will be put in place. Alexander mentioned some of them, Alan also. So this is really something the community needs, and we need to further develop. And we need to see more initiatives like Cyber Polygon. And I believe that you want to have this exercise happening.
With your kind support, Bruno, and support of World Economic Forum and all the participants and the Interpol, hopefully that would be the annual event, and we will proceed with it well.
Yes. And lastly, I will come back to the trust discussion. Trust is is built at several levels, at a human level, at a process level, at a technology level. So here's not at the technology and the process level, it's more at the human level. More people train together, and the better the trust is built faster. So this kind of exercise, and also multi-sector, this is what is needed today. Cyber criminals, they come from different backgrounds. They are well organized. They are able to quickly build campaigns and work together to achieve what they want to achieve, steal money. So we have to do the same to protect ourselves and to protect the cyberspace as a whole. Thank you. Maybe a final word for you? Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice day.